Imagine a vision so vivid and mysterious that it has puzzled scholars and believers for millennia. Picture a scene of four colossal beasts rising from turbulent waters, a prophetic panorama that foreshadows the rise and fall of empires. But then, emerging unexpectedly among these mighty creatures, a little horn appears, small in stature yet bold in its speech and actions, challenging divine authority and altering the course of history. Today, we journey through scripture, history, and prophetic interpretation to uncover the layers of this ancient mystery. We will examine every detail, from the vivid imagery of Daniel's night vision to the historical milestones that seem to mirror these prophetic words. Join us on this exploration as we slowly unravel the clues hidden in every verse, building suspense until the very end, when this little horn is finally revealed. Our journey begins with one of the most astonishing prophetic visions recorded in the Bible. In the 7th chapter of the book of Daniel, the prophet describes a dream he had at night, a dream that would come to symbolize the rise and fall of great empires and ultimately the conflict between divine authority and worldly power. Consider these opening words. Daniel spoke, saying, "I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea, and four great beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other." Daniel 7:2-3. This opening not only sets the stage with dramatic imagery, but also introduces us to the four beasts, each representing a distinct empire that ruled the ancient world. These aren't mere animals. They are symbols of the powerful and sometimes brutal forces that have shaped human history. In biblical visions, water can represent a population or large groups of people. One key verse that supports this idea is Revelation 17:15, where the angel explains the meaning of the waters. "The waters which you saw, where the harlot sits, are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues." This verse explicitly connects water with diverse groups of people, emphasizing their vastness and variety. The four beasts that emerge are not random. Each one is detailed with characteristics that invite us to look deeper at their historical counterparts. As we move through the narrative, we shall explore these beasts, but keep your focus. There is another element lurking in the details, a mysterious little horn that emerges later in the vision. Before we unveil the identity of the little horn, it is essential to understand the broader canvas of the prophecy by delving into the four beasts themselves. Number 1, the first beast, the lion with eagle's wings. In Daniel 7:4, the first beast is described as resembling a lion, but with wings like those of an eagle. Such imagery evokes majesty and power. Many biblical interpreters see this beast as a symbol for the Babylonian Empire, a realm renowned for its regal splendor, military might, and the grandeur of its kings. The lion, often a metaphor for nobility and ferocity, captures the essence of Babylon's dominant role in the ancient Near East. Its wings, however, imply speed and transcendence, hinting at the empire's rapid expansion under strong leadership. Number 2, the second beast, the bear with 3 ribs in its mouth. Moving to Daniel 7:5, the next beast is likened to a bear. This creature is depicted as rising up on one side, with 3 ribs clutched in its mouth, symbols of power and ferocity. The bear has long been associated with the Medo-Persian Empire, a dual monarchy known for its relentless conquest of Babylon. The imagery of the 3 ribs is interpreted by many as a representation of the 3 major territories that fell under its dominion: Babylon, Lydia, and Egypt. Here, the bear symbolizes not only the strength of its armies, but also the ruthlessness with which it subdued opposing nations. Number 3, the third beast, the leopard with 4 wings and 4 heads. In Daniel 7:6, the third beast appears, this time a leopard that bears 4 wings and 4 heads. The leopard's agility and speed, coupled with the multiple heads, evoke the image of an empire that was both swift and fragmented. This description has been linked to the Greek Empire established by Alexander the Great, whose rapid conquests and subsequent division of his empire among 4 generals fit the symbolism of a four-headed beast. The leopard's wings speak to the fleetness of the military campaigns that reshaped the ancient world in a matter of years. Number 4. The fourth beast, the dreadful beast with iron teeth. Finally, in Daniel 7:7, we encounter a beast that is altogether different, a terrifying creature described as dreadful and terrible and exceedingly strong. This beast is unlike the others. It had large iron teeth and 10 horns. This beast, often depicted as a monstrous amalgamation of various elements, symbolizing the culmination of earthly power. The Bible interprets this beast as representing Rome, a power known for its iron-fisted rule, widespread influence, and lasting legacy in both law and culture. Its ruthless nature, crushing power, and the way it devoured what lay before it serve as a fitting metaphor for an empire that dominated for centuries. Each beast tells a story. Their succession speaks of a progression from one era to another, each leaving its mark on the world. But hidden within this narrative is a detail that does not quite fit the pattern of the previous beasts, a detail that sets the stage for a revelation that has intrigued scholars for centuries. After presenting the grand vision of the 4 beasts, Daniel shifts his focus to the 10 horns of the fourth beast, with intriguing detail that captures our attention. I was considering the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before which 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. And in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. Daniel 7:8. This single verse introduces the little horn, a seemingly inconspicuous detail that is loaded with symbolic meaning. Unlike the majestic beasts that had dominated the scene, the little horn is described in terms that suggest both audacity and blasphemy. Notice the peculiar characteristics. It possesses eyes like the eyes of a man and a mouth speaking great things. This is no ordinary power. It is an entity that defies expectation and challenges the divine order. For those seeking to decode biblical prophecy, these words are both fascinating and perplexing. How can something little possess such bold, almost human attributes? And why does it appear among the horns of a beast that we have come to associate with mighty Rome? The answer, as we will explore, lies hidden in the clues woven throughout the text. Let us now turn our attention to the specific clues offered in Daniel's vision. By unpacking these verses, we can piece together the characteristics of the little horn and begin to see the outline of its historical fulfillment. The origin of the little horn. In the vision, the little horn emerges among them. That is, it appears within the context of the beast that represents the mighty empire we have discussed. It is not a separate force, but one that arises from within an already established power. As Daniel notes, it appears before which 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. The plucking of these horns is symbolic. It signifies the removal or overthrow of powers that once seemed unassailable. This act of uprooting serves as a precursor to the emergence of the little horn, a sign that the old order is being challenged from within. Distinctive characteristics of the little horn. The little horn is further defined by 2 striking features: eyes like a man. The description of having eyes like the eyes of a man suggests that, unlike the animalistic qualities of the beasts, this entity has adopted a human-like intelligence and perception. It implies a level of self-awareness, strategy, and even pride, traits that will prove critical in understanding its later actions. A mouth speaking great things. The phrase, a mouth speaking great things, indicates blasphemy and a sense of exaltation. It speaks of a being that is not content with a subordinate role but seeks to elevate itself, to claim authority and speak against that which is divine. The acts of persecution and rebellion. Daniel's narrative does not stop at physical description. It continues to outline the actions of the little horn. In subsequent verses, Daniel 7:20-25, the text explains that this power would wage war against the saints, challenge the divine order, and attempt to change times and laws. It is described as one that speaks against the Most High and attempts to alter sacred traditions. Such language points to an adversarial force, a power that not only rules but actively rebels against God's established order. The timeline and its implications. Perhaps one of the most intriguing aspects of Daniel's prophecy is the mention of a specific time period during which the little horn would hold sway. The prophetic timeline of 1,260 years is introduced later in the text and serves as a marker for the duration of this tumultuous influence. For centuries, historians have sought to reconcile this timeline with actual historical events. As we will see, when we match these prophetic markers with the historical record, the clues become compelling. To truly appreciate the weight of this prophecy, we must turn our attention to the historical record. History is replete with moments where the hand of divine prophecy seems to brush against the unfolding of human events. As we step back from the abstract symbolism of beasts and horns, let us look at the concrete historical markers that many believe correlate with the prophecy of the little horn, the fragmentation of a mighty empire. The fourth beast, the representation of the once mighty empire of Rome, began to show signs of internal decay long before its eventual collapse. In the wake of its fall, the unity of its domains shattered, and new powers emerged from the ruins of a once unified realm. Among these emerging powers, one began to assert a unique authority that was not solely political, but also spiritual in nature. Historical records reveal that as the remnants of this empire dispersed into various kingdoms and territories, a central system began to consolidate power, a system that would come to influence both religious practices and political authority. The uprooting of three kingdoms. Daniel's imagery of three horns plucked out by the roots has long been associated with the elimination or weakening of three significant groups that once counterbalanced the power of the central authority emerging from the fallen empire. Many historians have correlated these three with the demise of three formidable powers that once challenged or played roles in the shifting balance of power in Europe. While interpretations vary, some see these as representative of barbarian groups and rival kingdoms that were eventually subdued or rendered obsolete by the new order. The changing of times and laws. One of the more startling aspects of the little horn's actions is its claim to alter sacred times and laws. This is not merely a political or military conquest, it is an attempt to change the very rhythms of worship and tradition as handed down through the scriptures. Historical evidence shows that after the fall of the ancient empire, a powerful force emerged that redefined the day of worship. The traditional seventh-day observance, rooted in the biblical commandment, was replaced by a system that adopted the first day of the week as the day of rest and worship. This shift was not merely cultural, but represented a profound alteration in the religious life of entire societies. The 1,260-year period. Perhaps the most compelling piece of evidence lies in the prophetic timeline itself, a period of 1,260 years, during which the little horn would exercise its influence. When historians analyze the period following the collapse of the ancient empire, they find a span that corresponds closely with this prophetic time frame. Many have identified this period as beginning around the time when the remnants of the old order were reorganized and continuing through centuries of religious and political transformation until a decisive turning point occurred that signaled the end of this era. As we continue our exploration, it is crucial to consider the profound impact this prophetic force had on European history. The legacy of this power is not limited to abstract prophecy. It can be seen in the very fabric of European society, law, and religious practice, the consolidation of spiritual and temporal power. After the fragmentation of a mighty empire, a new order began to consolidate not only political power, but also spiritual authority. This dual influence enabled the emerging system to shape the lives of kings, commoners, and entire nations. Its leaders claimed divine right and assumed titles and prerogatives that suggested authority far beyond mere mortals. They spoke of matters that only the divine should control, and their claims inevitably led to conflicts that would echo through the ages: persecution and the fight for religious freedom. The actions of this power were not benign. Throughout history, those who questioned or opposed its doctrines found themselves facing persecution. Countless believers, individuals who sought to adhere strictly to the principles laid out in Scripture, faced trials, imprisonment, and even martyrdom. The history of religious dissent during this era is a testimony to the lengths that this power would go to suppress any deviation from its prescribed norms. Alteration of sacred observances of the seventh-day Sabbath. One of the most lasting legacies of this prophetic force is the alteration of a sacred tradition, the observance of the Sabbath. For centuries, a clear pattern of biblical worship was maintained, a pattern rooted in the creation account and the commandments given by God. However, during this period, a decisive change occurred. The sacred Sabbath, as originally prescribed on the seventh day of the week, Saturday, was supplanted by the first day of the week, Sunday, leading to widespread alterations in religious practice. This change was not without controversy and remains a point of contention for those who study biblical prophecy and church history. The long shadow over modern society. Even as we fast forward to more recent times, the influence of this prophetic power remains evident. Its legacy can be observed in the interplay between church and state, in the debates over religious liberty, and in the ongoing struggle between tradition and reform. The echoes of this ancient prophecy continue to resonate in modern discussions about the role of religion in public life, the interpretation of sacred texts, and the rights of those who dissent from established norms. Prophecy is never solely about the past. It always carries with it a message for the future. As we approach the climax of our exploration, we must consider the dual nature of Daniel's prophecy, a warning of judgment for those who oppose divine order, and a promise that truth will ultimately prevail. In the latter part of Daniel's vision, we read of a time when the dominion of this rebellious power would be taken away. The imagery is vivid. But the court shall be seated, and they shall take away his dominion, to consume and destroy it forever. Daniel 7:26. This statement is both a condemnation and a promise. It tells us that no matter how powerful the forces of rebellion may seem, there will come a day when divine justice is executed. The warning is clear. When human institutions deviate from God's ordained order, they invite judgment. History, in many respects, has borne out this warning as even the mightiest powers eventually fall. Yet, intertwined with the warning is a message of hope. The prophetic timeline, with its precise details and calculated durations, is designed not only to forecast downfall, but also to point to a future in which true righteousness is restored. For those who have felt the weight of oppression or the sting of injustice, this promise is a call to perseverance. It reminds us that no earthly power can permanently defy the will of the Almighty, and that eventually truth will shine forth. As we reflect on the warnings embedded in these ancient prophecies, we are reminded of the importance of vigilance. The battle between divine truth and human error is an ongoing one, a struggle that calls for careful discernment, study, and faith. The signs of the times, as revealed through Scripture and history, invite us to remain ever watchful, to question the narratives presented to us, and to stand firm on principles that have withstood the test of time. We have journeyed through the imagery of beasts, the detailed characteristics of the little horn, and the historical events that seem to mirror this prophetic narrative. Every clue, from the removal of 3 horns to the audacious claims made by this power, has led us here. Yet, throughout our exploration, the identity of the little horn has remained shrouded in mystery. The purpose of this careful withholding is to allow the evidence to build naturally, so that when the revelation comes, it is both surprising and compelling. Consider once more the characteristics laid out in Daniel's vision. It emerges from within an already dominant empire, arising as an internal force. Its human-like eyes and blasphemous speech indicate an intelligence and audacity that set it apart from the natural order. Its actions, persecuting the faithful and altering sacred traditions, signal a rebellion against divine law. Its influence is measured by a prophetic timeline of 1,260 years, a duration that has been observed historically with remarkable accuracy. These clues, taken together, suggest that the little horn was not an incidental detail. It was the harbinger of a system that would challenge divine truth, reshape societal norms, and leave an indelible mark on history. Now, after laying out all the clues and historical evidence, we come to the moment of revelation. The little horn, whose origins, characteristics, and actions have been described in such detail, finds its historical counterpart in the religious political system that rose from the remnants of the mighty empire of Rome, the Roman papacy. This system, which claimed authority over both temporal and spiritual realms, eventually set itself up as the arbiter of truth and tradition in Europe. It spoke boldly against what was held as sacred, persecuted those who challenged its dictates, and even altered the established times and laws of worship. The timeline of its influence, marked by that precise prophetic period of 1,260 years, aligns closely with the era during which it reigned supreme. Historical records recount how, after the fragmentation of the Roman papacy emerged, that not only unified various kingdoms under a common banner, but also reshaped religious practices, even to the point of replacing a long-held day of worship with one that suited its own agenda. It is only now that we reveal what the evidence has pointed toward all along. The little horn, as depicted in Daniel's prophetic vision, corresponds to the Roman papacy, or the Roman Catholic Church, that wielded both spiritual and temporal power in Europe for centuries. This revelation is not made to indict the individuals associated with it, but rather to identify Roman papacy as an organization, a power that challenged the divine order by asserting control over sacred truths and altering the course of history. As we draw this exploration to a close, it is worth reflecting on the broader implications of this prophecy. The narrative of the little horn is more than a historical account. It is a cautionary tale that resonates with anyone who values truth and divine authority. Number 1. The unchanging nature of divine truth. Despite the shifting sands of human history, the prophetic words in Daniel remain steadfast. They remind us that no matter how powerful a human institution might seem, it is ultimately subject to a higher law, a law that demands truth, justice, and righteousness. Number 2. The importance of critical study. The process of interpreting prophecy is not one of blind acceptance, but of careful examination, study, and discernment. The clues embedded in the text and corroborated by historical events call on us to engage deeply with Scripture, to understand the contexts of ancient visions, and to appreciate how they continue to influence our understanding of the world today. Number 3. A call to re-evaluate our heritage. The story of the little horn challenges us to reconsider the narratives that have shaped our cultural and religious traditions. It invites us to explore the origins of practices that we might otherwise take for granted, and to understand that history, when viewed through the lens of prophecy, can reveal profound truths about the nature of power, authority, and divine justice. Number 4. The relevance for today. Although the historical force we have discussed has its roots in a distant past, its legacy continues to impact modern society. The debates over religious observance, the struggle for true freedom of worship, and the tension between tradition and reform are all echoes of the ancient battle between divine truth and human authority. As we close this exploration, the journey through the prophetic vision of Daniel and the unfolding of historical events serves as a powerful reminder of the interplay between divine prophecy and human history. The little horn, whose identity we have carefully pointed out, is now revealed to be the embodiment of the Roman papacy, that challenged sacred truths for centuries and even to this day. But this revelation is not merely an academic exercise, it is an invitation to examine the texts that have guided countless generations, to understand the significance of history in light of prophecy, and to prepare ourselves for the future with eyes wide open. Ask yourself, in a world where human institutions often claim absolute authority, how do we discern the voice of truth? Are we content to follow traditions that have drifted away from their divine origins, or do we dare to return to the timeless principles that have been handed down through Scripture? Now is the time to delve deeper into your own study. Revisit the pages of Daniel, reflect on the signs of the times, and let the evidence of history guide you toward a greater understanding of the eternal conflict between divine law and human ambition. As we continue to search for truth, remember that history is not merely a record of what has been, it is a testimony to what is yet to come. The prophetic timeline reminds us that no earthly power, no matter how grand, can stand in defiance of the ultimate authority of the Almighty. Thank you for joining this journey through one of history's most enigmatic prophecies. If this exploration has sparked a desire for further study, please subscribe for more Unleashed Bible content. Share your thoughts, questions, and insights. Let us continue to seek truth together, always mindful of the lessons of the past and the promise of a future restored to divine order. You are Watch Bible Stories Unleashed. God bless.